Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from Wool Standard 1631. AITA for not including my trans friend in my bridal party after she just came out as trans. I, 28F, am getting married in a few months, and I've already chosen my bridal party, which consists of my cousins and sisters, people I've been close with my whole life. My best friend Sarah, 29F, and I have been inseparable since childhood. And when I got engaged, I was not considering Sarah to be in my bridal party because she was not yet living as a woman. However, things have changed recently. Sarah just came out as a trans woman and has started transitioning, which is something she's been grappling with. While I've been supportive of her through this, my bridal party was already set before she started transitioning. The problem is that Sarah assumed she would be a bridesmaid, and when I told her I couldn't change the bridal party at this point, she was really hurt. She's upset, saying that I'm rejecting the new version of her by not including her. I completely understand that this is a big moment in her life, and I want her to feel loved and supported, but I'm also facing a lot of pressure with wedding planning, and the bridal party has already been decided. Sarah's been lashing out, telling me things like, "You're not really my friend anymore," and that I don't care about her as much as I say I do. She says I'm excluding her from my life, and it feels like I'm being attacked. I've tried to explain that it's not about her being trans. It's just that I made commitments to my family, and the timeline is tight with everything I've already planned. But she's still really upset, and now things feel tense between us. I love Sarah, but I'm also overwhelmed by wedding planning, and I don't know how to fix this. AITA for sticking to my decision about the bridal party, or should I have made room for her? OP is not the AH for not including my trans friend in my bridal party because it was set before Sarah came out, and it's reasonable not to alter plans last minute. However, OP should reassure Sarah that she's still valued and included in other meaningful wedding roles, particularly because she might be misunderstanding that she is being excluded because of her gender. Let's now move on to the next story from Revolutionary Box 13. AITA for making my boss chase me down while I had COVID. Recently, one of my coworkers came to work with a sore throat, and after testing came up positive for COVID. I was in very close proximity to them during that day. They were in my car. And on the weekend, I ended up testing positive as well. I texted my boss and let them know that I had tested positive, and I would be out recovering, to which they responded with a typical "get well soon" kind of message. I didn't think much of it, just said thank you, and went to sleep. 2 days later, my boss, we'll call her Jan going forward, texts me asking me how I'm doing, but I didn't see the message. The fever and sinus pressure were so intense that it was causing my face to swell, so I was very heavily medicated. When I wake up the next morning, I text her back immediately apologizing for missing the text, and explaining to her that I'm feeling a bit better, but still had quite a way to go. She responds to this with a two-part message, the first part being another generic "get well soon", the second part being a request for me to handle a work task. I didn't have access to my computer because it was at my job, but I still coordinated with her and other co-workers to address the issue and was able to produce something using my phone. This takes about 2 hours, and when I finish, I hang up but continue to update Jan throughout the day on whether or not the work got approved. This part gets a bit personal. Sorry in advance. By the weekend I was definitely feeling better, but developed a soreness in one of my balls. Like a really bad soreness. So bad that I couldn't walk without limping. I had read another post about a guy that described something similar happening to him, and it ended up being a testicular torsion. This is basically when one of your balls twists on itself and it can't get oxygen and dies if ignored for a few hours. I went straight to urgent care, where they ultimately tell me that tests came back normal. But with the pain, I'm feeling I need to go to the ER to get an ultrasound to check for a torsion. 4 anxiety-filled hours later, they tell me it's a semi-uncommon side effect of COVID in guys, where they essentially just experience blue balls indefinitely until the inflammation goes down on its own. Not great. Monday rolls around, and a different supervisor texts me asking how I'm doing. I obviously don't feel as comfortable sharing detailed information about my balls with my supervisors, who are women, as I do with complete strangers on the internet, so I tell her that most of the symptoms have gone away, but I had an unexpected complication that's causing me a bit of pain. She replied to this, "Good to hear you're doing better." This is weird to me considering she glossed over the pain, but I decide not to stress myself out and let it go. 2 days later, I have a follow-up doctor appointment. And at my appointment, I get another text. This time it's Jan again, asking me again how I'm doing. I let her know that I'm feeling better and that I should be back in the office the following day. She ignores the message for 8 hours and then says, "Glad you're better, hoping to for sure see you tomorrow." This makes my stomach drop a bit because for some reason, I interpreted her message like I wasn't supposed to be out for as long as I was. I'm not the type of person to milk sick days. There have been several occasions where I've tried to push it and come back early, and Jan would tell me to leave so as not to get anyone else sick. I go into work the next day, and I'm getting cold responses from some of my supervisors, including Jan. No one is asking how I'm doing or feeling. They just say different variations of, "Glad to see you're back." Around lunch, Jan calls me to her office and tells me that she didn't appreciate having to chase me around for updates on my condition, and that it was unprofessional of me to not text her with an update at least every 2 days. And if someone asks her where I am, she has no idea. I go silent with confusion, seeing that the only place that I would be with COVID is home. As she continues to lecture me, I'm offended, but I don't really argue back because 1, she's my boss, and 2, there's a very significant size difference between us. So I'm very conscious not to come off combative. I must have made a face at this comment, and she abruptly stops talking. I had no intention of saying anything in my own defense, but she blurts out, "Yeah, I know you were sick, but that's no excuse." As she finishes, I just nod my head and say, "Okay," and promise to take more initiative to update her in the future. As the day progresses, our interaction begins to bother me more and more, so I go talk to the coworker who gave me COVID. I strike up a conversation about work, and then subtly ask her how often she texted Jan. She responds saying she didn't text Jan with updates at all, but Jan checked in once or twice. She didn't even get a lecture. I managed to contain my frustration and quickly change the subject. "This person got me sick, but I'm the one in trouble? If I'm in the wrong, I can accept that. But I honestly didn't feel like I did anything wrong. Genuinely, I want to know." AITA. TLDR, my boss chastised me for not texting them every other day with updates while I had COVID. OP is not the AH for not updating his boss, because he was seriously ill and still handled work tasks. The boss was unfair, especially since the coworker who spread COVID wasn't reprimanded. Expecting frequent updates from a sick employee while ignoring his condition is unreasonable. So, OP's boss is an AH, and I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now just move on to the next story from Truey7862-8. AITA. For stopping communication with my mother leading up to my 18th birthday. I, 18M, stopped talking to my mother, 58F, around 3 weeks ago. For some context, this was all leading up to my 18th birthday, which was today, but not because of it. She and I have never had the strongest relationship, which has deteriorated as I got older, because I felt that whatever I did in my achievements, X getting merit and art awards, consistently keeping some of the best grades in my class, did not matter, as they were never enough. I grew to resent/envy those that hugged their parents when they saw them, and weren't required to keep grades that were 95s plus, and felt as if I was missing out, because my parents were not like that. To keep my mind off of it, I delved deeper into studies as well as creating art, and found escapes such as video games to make new friends. I still didn't let my grades or anything drop as they're important to me so I can go to college, but rather used these as escapes. She is Asian and was born and raised with 5 siblings there, while I am an only child born and raised in the USA. During my senior year, I tried to help myself be more sociable and connected with friends throughout the year, as well as got a girlfriend, 18F, in February, after realizing it was downright unhealthy to keep up my cycle of staying inside and playing video games. This has led me to be out of the house more, as well as picking back up hobbies I once had, such as my Eagle Scout, which I had originally quit, but was now rushing to complete. The day this fight happened, I was working on homework I was behind on, and she was fed up with the state of my room. I was also working on merit badges I needed, which I will take responsibility for this, as it was pretty disorganized, with papers everywhere from working on different assignments and badges, as well as clothes I had avoided folding. Point being, she had tried to get me to vacuum and tidy when I was doing homework, which I asked her to wait on until after I was finished. This has been a cycle throughout my life, but I get to the chores within the day usually. which has largely been amicable between us. From my perspective, so I didn't think much of it until she expressed her frustration and started yelling at me. This is not uncommon for me, as the yelling and fighting has happened between both my mother and I, as well as her and my father since I was a kid, to the point where when I was younger, approximately 5 years old, I would be shown videos of her and my father, 64M, fighting, from her perspective, while my father was drunk, and be asked to take her side. This is where I feel I'm completely in the wrong. I asked her to wait, telling her to wait until I was done with the assignment, as it is rare for me to be able to focus fully on one assignment. I am horrible with keeping myself on task, as I have a huge habit of procrastinating that I really do want to break. I don't think this is because of any outside neurological factors. I just think I'm bad at time management. This caused a huge blow-up and caused both of us to get very emotional, ending up in an all too common screaming match between me and her, where my dad intervened and caused her to tell me that if I ever speak to you again, my name isn't her name. In her Chinese, I speak and understand the language. Since then, we have not spoken. I ended up getting my eagle a couple days before I turned 18 and stayed up daily to study for my finals over this past week, and completely forgot it was my birthday, until my friends surprised me today. I don't usually celebrate my birthday. It's just not something that I held in a lot of importance because of its closeness to Christmas. Upon coming home, I found a card from her, which had a note saying, "From now on, you'll be on your own with your lovely dad, since you said nobody likes me in this house. My job as your mother is done. I wish you have a good life with your girlfriend." As well as 3 pages in Chinese that I am unable to read. I cannot read or write, but I think pretty much is all her grievances with me, as well as just cutting me off now that I'm 18. I do feel partly guilty for this, and have gotten differing responses from both friends and some of my teachers I vented to about this, about how much fault I had. I was originally going to stop talking to her after I went to college, but seeing it from her perspective, I haven't been the perfect son either. Am I in the wrong? OP is not the AH. His mother emotionally manipulated him from childhood, dismissed his achievements, and escalated conflicts. While he could have handled things better, her passive-aggressive card and disowning him at 18 show her toxicity, not his wrongdoing. So, not op, rather, her mom is an AH, and I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump onto the next story from lyrical_reader, AITA, for essentially abandoning a friendship. I, 23F, need some advice on what to do about a friendship situation. When I was a freshman in college, I met this girl. Let's call her K, 22F. Just to clarify, I won't be using any real names in this story, but I need some placeholders for it to make sense. K and I met the second we arrived on campus and became friends very quickly. We would go see movies, get our nails done, go on girls' dates, and all in all, just talk about life together. Over the course of the 4 years of our undergrad, I would constantly drive her everywhere, pick her up and take her home when she was too drunk to drive, took her for alcohol runs, planned fun girls' days, listened to all her problems, give her the best advice I could, and, every summer, I would throw her a birthday party at my apartment, complete with cake, decorations, and gifts. All of this was entirely at my expense, but I didn't mind doing any of it because we were so close, and she was my best friend. Well, fast forward to the second weekend of June 2024. I had moved back to my hometown in April 2024 because I graduated early and had begun working on my master's degree online. I was really worried about losing all of my friendships because I had to move away, so I made a very conscientious effort to stay in contact with everybody. This particular weekend in June, however, I drove the 2.5 hours back up to our college town to spend Thursday and Friday night to celebrate my best friend's birthday. It's important to note here that I had 3 best friends at the time: Kay, who I mentioned earlier, Nat, 22F, and Vicky, 23F. Vicky lives in a different town, so she isn't a part of this story, but I love her and never want to leave her out. For this particular weekend in June, the friend group had combined the birthdays of Kay and Nat into one big birthday weekend, as their birthdays are 6 days apart. I spent almost $400 that I didn't have on a hotel room to come see Kay and Nat for 2 nights, and spent between $50 and $100 each on their gifts. I made myself completely available to them and accommodated their hectic work schedules. After all, this weekend was about them. Kay was kind of snippy with me several times throughout the weekend because I was trying to figure out what time I should meet them for our scheduled activities such as dinners out. To be clear, I never ever pestered her about anything because I knew she would be at work for most of the time that I was there. I asked her twice over text what time I should meet her for dinner, even offering to drive. She was frustrated with her job and was snapping at me and Nat because we were all trying to coordinate. She then got upset because Nat and I wanted to meet up a little earlier than everyone else to hang out and go to the local Barnes & Noble. Nat and I both share a love of reading, so we love going on book shopping adventures together. Kay was still at work and doesn't really like reading, so we didn't think she'd care if we went ahead to shop a little at the bookstore. Ultimately, everyone met up for dinner Thursday and Friday nights, and everything was fine. I even stayed several hours later in our college town on Saturday than I had planned so that I could spend more time with my friends and do one last dinner together. I made all this effort despite the fact that, the night before I was supposed to drive up to see them, I had spent the night in the hospital with a severe migraine attack. Also, that Sunday, my family and I were headed to the beach for our annual family vacation, so I really needed to get home on time. After this weekend, I started noticing Kay withdrawing a bit. She's very active on social media, and we would always send each other things on Instagram and TikTok. I also made an effort to talk to her directly over Snapchat. Over the course of that following month, I started to notice that she wouldn't respond to any of the messages I sent her, if she even opened them at all. It's very typical of her to kind of forget about somebody when they aren't right in front of her. But my spidey senses are telling me that there is some sort of a problem, because I never thought she'd do that kind of thing to me. Again, we were best friends. I decided I would use my birthday, which is in September, as a benchmark. She had essentially gone nonverbal since June, so I thought that if I didn't hear from her at all, then the friendship was officially over. On the evening of my birthday, I got a sweet happy birthday text from her over Snapchat saying that she hoped I had the best day. After that, it was essentially back to no communication. I sent her a sweet thank you text, and she didn't even open it until weeks later. At one point, I slid up on her Snapchat story to tell her she looked cute, and she sent me a smiley face back, and then, once again, we're back to no communication. I needed to give you all this context to get to where we are in the present day. A couple weeks ago, she sent me 2 TikTok out of the blue. Both of them had to do with breakups, and I asked her if everything was okay between her and her boyfriend. Let's call him Brendan. She has seen my messages, and all these weeks later, still hasn't responded. I did some slow thing on both of their Instagram accounts, and put it together that they definitely broke up. I think it's interesting that she would reach out now that things are going wrong. Now here's where things really get messed up. Yesterday, my friend Nat called and told me that she got engaged to her boyfriend. Let's call him Dom. I can totally see Kay being so bitter and upset over her own breakup that she tries to ruin Nat's engagement. I truly hope that's not the case, but I can't help but worry. And I don't know what it will be like for us all to be at Nat's wedding. Obviously, her wedding is not about us or any drama. I'm just wondering for my own state of mind. I would never do anything to jeopardize Nat's big day. Luckily, Nat is actually passing through my hometown tomorrow, on her way to meet her new fiancé's family, and we'll be seeing each other. I'm so excited. I haven't seen her since that fateful weekend in June, so hopefully I have an update in the next couple of days. My question was and remains, what do I do about Kay? My dad thinks I should reach out to her and confront the problem head on. But to be honest, I'm a little angry at this whole situation, and it has made me take a hard look at our friendship. I've always known that it's a little difficult to be Kay's friend. She can be very self-absorbed, and anytime you try to talk about anything going on in your own life, she turns it around and makes it about her. She's very easily offended and expects everyone to essentially cater to her whims and feelings. I brushed all of these things aside in the past because there is good in her, and she did have her moments where she was a good friend. But honestly, most of our relationship was very one-sided with me doing all the giving. I feel like if she does have a problem, then she needs to be the one to take it up with me like an adult. Why should I have to go crawling to her to fix something when I know I didn't do anything wrong? I guess I'm just wondering, am I the asshole? How should I handle this? AITA, for essentially abandoning a friendship? OP is not the AH for abandoning her friendship. She invested heavily in a one-sided friendship, and Kay distanced herself without any explanation. OP doesn't owe Kay reconciliation, especially given her self-absorbed and AH behavior. Letting go is justified when a friendship becomes emotionally draining and unreciprocated. As for scores, I would rate OP's friend 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets 0. Let's now jump on to the next story from AC0499. AITA. For feeling like the things that are important to me are not being taken seriously. My husband and I have been together for over a decade, married for around half of that time, have a toddler and a second on the way. I need to know if hormones are getting the better of me and if I am overreacting. There have been several instances over the years where things that have been very important to me, and in some cases I think to our family, that my husband seems to agree are important in the moment, but then just ignore. I have been up half the night thinking things over, and am starting to spiral a little, as some small recent issues have reminded me of bigger things from over the years. And it is all seeming to form part of a bigger picture of the things I ask for not being important to my husband. We had a bit of a fight last night because there are a few things I have asked my husband to do recently, which he hasn't done. These include booking a doctor's appointment for our daughter last week to discuss a major potty training regression. I was working last week and have a pretty intense and demanding job, and I'm struggling with energy, etc., whilst in my first trimester with our second. I wanted her to be seen last week as she was on school holidays, but most haven't yet broken up, so I thought she would be seen more easily. Talk to his family about Boxing Day plans. We are going to their house and his brothers wants to cook. No issues with that, but I asked him to discuss what we would be having and what we could contribute so we could all agree in advance and make plans. I'm struggling with what I can eat at the moment whilst pregnant and with heavy food. His family have decided on a full roast, which means having a full roast 3 days running, and we've now been asked to bring an alternative meat because I can't eat what's been chosen. I just feel like if this had all been discussed a few weeks ago when I asked him to, we could have worked out something that worked for everyone. His family seemed to want to do Christmas Day Take 2, which I find odd as we're all together, with my family too, for Christmas Day itself. He volunteered to exchange a Christmas present I'd bought for a family member, which arrived damaged as he was going into the nearest big city anyway to finish some of his own shopping. He forgot to take it with him. Easily done, and, in isolation, this wouldn't have bothered me. But now it just feels like another thing. Now, I appreciate that nothing above is a big-ticket issue, but him not doing them despite, for example, me checking every day last week if he'd booked our daughter's appointment, has just added to my sense of things I need from him being second fiddle. He is very hands-on. We split childcare pretty much equally, although my daughter generally prefers me to do a lot of things, so sometimes the balance is more on me, not his fault. We both have demanding jobs, but his is finished when he's home, whereas I'm often working late into the night, especially when a chunk of my early evening has been spent doing school pickup, supper, bath, and bed for our daughter. Not every night, as I say. We share this as far as possible. I am exhausted. I'm struggling with brain fog whilst pregnant, which makes everything take longer, so work is dragging on, and I'm struggling. He tends to do a bit more of the housework, laundry, general tidying, we have a cleaner, and I do more of the mental side of the household chores, budgets, bills, food shopping, family present buying, etc. Asking him to pick up the points above, whilst he was already off work for Christmas and I wasn't yet, was a way of trying to spread the mental load a little. Now to the bigger things that this is dredging up. I am feeling a lot of financial pressure. We decided to privately educate our daughter, which we can afford, but it doesn't leave a lot for savings, etc. I know we are very lucky to have this option, and we have done it because we love our house, but don't like the local schools. I earn more than my husband, but we both have decent salaries. With number 2 on the way, I would like to A, take longer off on this maternity leave, and B, drop to 4 days per week when I go back to feel like I have more family time and readjust my work/life balance. Do be able to do this, / at least know what our options are. I have asked my husband several times over the last year, and probably a lot longer in more general terms, to do a bit of benchmarking to see if he is comfortable with how he is paying paid and progressed, etc. He has worked for the same large company his entire career, and he has said before that he doesn't always feel he is being paid what he should be or progressed appropriately. My view is, so long as it is all right and he is happy then, that's fine, and we budget accordingly. But I want him to do the research to come to that conclusion. And if he concludes he's not being paid fairly, etc., then to move companies or otherwise deal with the situation. Whenever we talk about it, he agrees it's important, but then nothing further happens. It's making me feel like a massive nag, which I don't think is fair, given that I am constantly exploring what I can do to keep us in good financial shape. Currently, I still won't be able to take as long off with our second as I'd like. A while ago, a few years now, I felt like things were stagnating a bit, and I wanted us to be more deliberate in the time we spent together. I suggested taking turns to plan monthly date nights, budget, etc., to be decided by the person planning. Could be as simple as a movie night at home with snacks. I went first. Date night 2 never happened. I have planned and booked everything for every single holiday we've ever taken, and this was a biggie for me, but I appreciate it may sound entitled. I never got a proper, by which I meant thoughtful, proposal. He proposed off the cuff one night after quite a few drinks. He had a ring, family, which he'd apparently had at home for several months whilst he thought of how to do it. And then he decided to just do it. I think he knew I was getting a bit sad it hadn't happened after quite a few years together. I didn't want anything big or fancy, just something a bit more deliberate. Everyone I know has been taken away for the weekend, or had something lovely planned, or a special moment whilst on holiday, and I won't ever get that. I'd have been super happy with a nice picnic or something. Just something that felt intentional, and not like a f*** it may as well, as he had a family ring, which I love, and didn't choose one for me. We talked about an eternity ring when we found out I was pregnant the first time. They're pretty usual amongst our family. We were stand friends for either after 1 year of marriage or first child. We weren't earning as much at that time, although still decent, and I found something I really liked that was about €300. He asked what I'd like, and I showed him this early in my pregnancy. It never materialized, even a year after our daughter was born. He took me to look at rings a couple of times, but the conversation stopped there. I eventually said to forget about it, and that if I had to keep asking if it was still happening, it took the meaning away, and it wasn't about the ring, but about him wanting to do something nice for me. We had a big discussion about it, and he said he'd dropped the ball. We eventually chose a beautiful ring together, which I love, but it went on a joint card as he hadn't saved anything for it. He regularly forgets to do things I've asked him to do. I've asked him to put reminders in his phone as if he says he will do something, but then I have to constantly remind him A, I feel like a nag, and B, it doesn't take the mental load off me. Nothing has changed yet. When we had an argument about the small things today, he said sometimes he feels like I delegate things to him to test him. I said that's not true, and I struggle to see how asking him to book an appointment for his own daughter, or be the one to liaise with his own family, could be construed in that way. What he said really upset me, and I went up to bed. Sorry for the epic rant. I just needed to write it all down. Are my pregnancy hormones getting the better of me, and I'm overreacting? Or do I need to have another talk with my husband about valuing the things that are important to me? OP is not the AH for her feelings. She's overwhelmed, carrying the mental load, and frustrated by her husband's repeated inaction. Her concerns are valid, and his dismissiveness exacerbates the issue. He needs to step up and follow through on responsibilities. OP husband is a little bit AH, and I would rate him 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now move on to the next story from Dragon Aura X, AITA, for thinking I did nothing wrong? I started watching this one anime, and decided to join the main big sub for it. I discussed some stuff, then later when I started making artworks of characters, my post was removed from there even though I just sketched and colored a character exactly as she is pretty much from a manga panel. The only difference was I added a little bit more to the proportions. Not too much, so it was very close still, and not NSFW. Either way, I just decided to look for an alternative sub to post my stuff in where the rules were a bit less harsh, and found this other small community which at the time had like 1.5 to 2,000 members. So I posted it there and got a lot of upvotes and stuff. Maybe a month or 3 weeks later, I found out they have a Discord server, so I joined. After sitting there for a week and sharing some art in the dedicated channel, I thought it was pretty chill. However, sometimes there were these weird moments when people made jokes such as "go kill yourself" or "I'm 15 inches deep in you." It was a response of a minor to "but you're 15." And mods didn't care shit about this. One of the mods who's much older even participated in the same kind of jokes, setting a bad example. Meanwhile, I never participated in this kind of shit. Only made a few, perhaps lewd comments once about some artworks, which made a bunch of said minors call me a addict. LOL, seriously? After you post naked women with a strip of clothing covering their intimate parts on the sub. I've been mean a few times to said dudes, but since I'm not a little kid anymore, I wanted to be more mature. And at the end, after a fun voice call with the members, I pinged one of them and apologized for perhaps being an asshole, and he was like, all good, and didn't say anything else. I didn't act mean to anyone since that moment. Either way, one day I was accused of being a porn addict when I said I found a hot artwork of a character on Instagram. Since this was taking the piss off me at that point, I chose a random post from my suggested content, which was of a character on a beach wearing a bikini and being quite busty. I covered the whole image with the black pen tool on my iPhone, only showing the character's face and shoulders, and like the very tiny bit of the feet, just in case they ignore my point and keep calling me that, and I did a small red arrow pointing at the suggested for you bit. Image got almost instantly deleted by the mod, and the said mod said something along the lines of, "Whoa, dude, there's minors here, don't post p-." Like what? Porn? Where? They post half-naked characters on the sub, and then complain about a fully covered image. Either way, that got me real pissed. Not as in angry, but just upset that the mods ignore everything that should be taken care of, and instead delete something that is harmless. That dude who I apologized to, I messaged him with the same covered image asking, "Where's porn in that?" Since he ignored my messages, I knew that he sided with the mods, so I deleted all the messages in that DM. I didn't say anything at all in that server, and just posted a little artwork that day of a character which was made in honor of their death in the anime. Randomly the next day I opened Discord and realized I'm not in the server anymore, which means I got a ban. My friend who was there said they didn't mention me at all. That until earlier today. She said they made a joke about me being a addict and a weirdo out of nowhere and talked shit about me. And randomly I got a ban on the subreddit for DMing porn to a minor. Like what? I wasn't on the Discord for 2 weeks, and now I got this ban. All I did on the sub was post harmless sketches, which were basically famous memes, but remixed with some male characters instead of people. Emphasis on male to show that stuff I posted wasn't even horny or anything. Honestly, at this point, I knew that the mod team is corrupt as shit, and they have this friend group syndrome where they let whatever their friends do slide, and when I do something not even remotely close to that, they get extremely offended. I wrote a long and polite final message as a response to the ban message, only to be told that again, I sent porn to a minor when I clearly didn't, and the mod's just missing 95% of the points made, and making a miserable excuse comparing me to transphobes and bigots and racists they deal with. So AITA for thinking I did nothing wrong after I get literally banned from the sub 2 weeks after not being in the Discord, because the mods bring personal matter into the case and completely ignore the rules, giving me a ban for something I never did and for something that isn't even in the rules of the sub. OP is not the AH for being frustrated with unfair moderation, but engaging in arguments and provoking mods with the censored image escalated tensions. Be careful next time. You are not an AH. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries. Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from charming_ninja, _3583. AITA for refusing to let my boyfriend stay overnight at his female best friend. My boyfriend Kyle and I have been together for 2 years-ish. Mostly things are okay, but I would say the biggest issue is communication. If I say something he doesn't like, it's not uncommon for him to stonewall me and not talk to me for a few hours. I've told him repeatedly that it bothers me deeply when he does this because I was quite literally abandoned in a field by my father when I was 5. I know it's my issue, but even giving me a ballpark figure of when he is coming back helps me to not panic. He won't do that. A lot of times, he will hang up on me mid-sentence or over anything he doesn't like, and I'll have to try and stay calm until he shows back up. It feels like torture since he is well aware of my not-so-nice past. I stayed home because of family issues. He went away to college in another city, and it's only made this gap worse. Now, he turns his phone off, and I don't know where he is, what he is doing, or who he is with. I know it's college, but it would be nice to know what's going on instead of being left in the dark. Recently, he mentioned that he was going to a sports event at a college a city over. That is the same college one of the girls he is friends with, let's call her Kelly, goes to. I deeply have always felt off about Kelly. The texts he showed me border on flirty. When they've been together in front of me, it feels off. I can't tell anyone how it just does. He said he was going to go over there and spend the night with her in her dorm room. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, and that while I appreciate the honesty, it feels wrong for him to be sleeping literally in her room. He said, "If I was going to cheat, I wouldn't be telling you about it." And ended up stonewalling me again for a few hours when I protested that it really makes me nervous. He finally came back into contact and said that I was being abusive by not letting him have friends. I said I wasn't trying to prevent the friendship, I just felt weird over him staying with her. Well, he went. He is there now. He said he would stay in contact. I asked him to call. He video called, but from the bathroom, and I asked him why he was there. Like I was going to say hi to Kelly and her boyfriend, who I've never met, and she's never mentioned anywhere, but apparently exists, since he was apparently there. And he hung up. Haven't heard from him at all, and it's been hours. AITA. He keeps telling me all the ways I'm abusive or bad, or overreacting, but I feel like there is something off about this. Edit. There have been other situations like this one coming up frequently, and others, but I was trying to not ramble. There have also been things going on with me, abusive home life, my mental health struggles, that make me think he is right, and I am turning abusive since it's what I'm around constantly. OP is not the AH. Rather, her boyfriend is an AH for manipulating her and dismissing her trauma, and likely be unfaithful. OP's boyfriend's secretive behavior is a huge red flag. OP is not abusive, and her reaction is 100% justified. Rather, OP's boyfriend is an AH, and I would rate him 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump on to the next story from Thin-Dream-586. My F27 partner, M37, has screamed at me for 2 days and told me to go back to my home country. AITA, I, 27F, am 29 weeks pregnant. My partner, 27M, has not long come back from a month trip in another country for rehabilitation for a back issue. This was really hard on me, naturally, as I'm in his country and have no friends or family of my own here. His mother stayed with me the whole month, which was also hard since I'm not fluent in their language yet, and pregnancy symptoms, sickness, insomnia, pain, hormones, paired with my partner being away, hit me like a train. He came back and was so angry that I hadn't organized the living room and taken boxes away and made it nice. That the Christmas tree I decorated was that I used the living room shelves for storage. He took our 12-week scans off the fridge because he didn't need to see them anymore. The baby is bigger now. He shouted at me. I put a box of tissues on the shelf. Whilst he was laying, I sorted the washing, but got out of breath, and he screamed, "If you need to rest, take a rest for sake." At me. He said it's not too much to ask to have some tidying and organizing done, pregnant or not. I don't have a job, so why is it an issue? I got really hurt by this and left the house without saying goodbye. I just went around the city for 2 hours by myself, talking to friends on the phone. When I got back, he said if I did that again without telling him goodbye or saying where I was going, I could leave and not come back. I hung up on him last month when he was shouting at me, and he said it's the same thing. I apologized and said I just needed space, and he said I should say that then, which I guess I can understand, and maybe I am in the wrong for walking out. I just felt overwhelmed. He told me to go back to England if I wanted drama. That really hurt. He said I could have sorted things out with him, but chose to leave instead. But I didn't feel that at the time. He was so angry at me, I thought leaving and coming back would make it better. I was crying as telling me to go back to England hurt so much. He threw a little gift I got him across the room. I, or his mother, didn't notice mold on the kitchen doors/wall at all. But he noticed it and said I wasn't fit to be a mother, or a woman. I was only biologically one and can't look after myself. We sleep on a futon and a tatami, which I roll up around 4 to 5 times a week in the daytime. But I hadn't been doing it every day, as some days I barely could move from bed. He said the darkening on the tatami was mold. I thought it was just from the futon making the hay darker. He said it's ruined. He can't trust me and has no idea who his partner is. He doesn't know me. He threw jewelry he got me across the room and said I was a joke leaving it out on my dresser for our cleaner to steal. I was vomiting. I don't know why. I haven't vomited that much this trimester, and he said that's all I'm good at. After he threw the jewelry boxes across the room, I got extreme pain in my stomach and doubled over, but he ignored me. He told me to sleep on the sofa bed. I don't know what to do. I don't even know if we're together. The baby hasn't moved since Friday night. It's currently Sunday morning. I haven't slept in 2 nights. I have stomach pain. AITA here? I realize I let him down, but I honestly didn't think it was this bad. I don't know what to do. Thanks for reading this. TLDR. Partner blew up after coming home from month-long rehabilitation, unsure where I stand. Update. Thank you to everyone for the responses. The way none of you even questioned my possible fault in the situation was mind-boggling. Because there isn't one. Not one that deserves the reaction anyway. I want everyone to know I went to the hospital and baby is fine. He said he couldn't take me because of his back pain and a cold, so I got a taxi. I was updating him, but he went to see a show we were meant to see instead and had his phone off. So, he didn't see. Then when he got back, I asked if he wanted to see the report, and he said no, he needs to look after himself. Then he ripped a magnet I'd made of us last year on holiday off the wall, because he can't stand it, and said he hopes I'm happy, because I could have sorted it all out with him yesterday and made it all better. But I chose to leave to think for a few hours, and now he has no interest in fixing things. Maybe ever. He said he may not even be here for Christmas. I have told my family, and there are some flights tomorrow. I don't think I'll be able to grab much stuff as he works from home. His mum will also be here, and may try to alert him, but I think he'll just relish in the fact that it was me who left, just like he says it's my fault everything is ruined between us. OP is not the AH. Her partner is abusive, cruel, and emotionally manipulative. He disregards her well-being, insults her, and shows no concern for their unborn child. OP must prioritize her safety and leave. His behavior will only escalate. Let's now jump on to the next story from necessary_judge_1786 AITA for slapping my brother's fiancé in the face. I, 21F, have an older brother, 35M. We are half siblings, and my mom had my brother very young. My brother, let's call him Tim, has 2 kids, Mary, 7F, and James, 5M. Their mother died 3 years ago. I loved Tim's wife, Janie. She was like a sister to me, and I miss her dearly. I know Tim and the kids do as well, all fake names. My brother moved out to Colorado, where I am currently a junior in college, for a job opportunity in Denver. My school is about a 45-minute to an hour drive away from their place, so I see them often. Mary comes to my college house to hang out with me and my friends. We do spa nights with her, and all the girly things she's been missing since her mom passed. My boyfriend and James often play video games together during the spa nights. One of my roommates has a dog, so the boys also play with him and take him on walks. In the past, the kids would come over once a month, maybe less, so Tim can get a little break. That's how it's been since my freshman year. However, in the end of last school year, around March, about 10 months ago, Tim met someone. Let's call her Meg. Meg is also 35 and has 3 kids, all girls and around 5 to 9 years old. I'm not exactly sure. At first, I was very happy for Tim and thought this would be great for Mary and James as well. I thought surely this woman, Meg, would make an effort to include my niece and nephew. Tim and Meg dated for a while before introducing each other to their kids. This introduction happened in July. I was in Europe with my boyfriend for around 2 months over the summer, so I didn't know exactly what was doing on. When I returned in August for school, Mary and James' visits to me became very frequent. Like once a week, which is honestly a lot for me because I'm in school and have a pretty busy social life. But I love my niece and nephew, so I was fine with it at first. I still hadn't met Meg at this point. But then, one night in September, Tim dropped both kids off at my door and just left. This was so unlike him. He didn't check with me if they could come. My roommates and I weren't even home. It was a Saturday night at like 11 p.m. So we were out at some event for our sorority. I had no idea they were there. One of my boyfriend's roommates, they live across the street from my house, saw James and Mary sitting on my front porch and brought them to his house, my boyfriend's house. He made them pasta because, apparently, they said they were starving, and watched a movie with them until my boyfriend came home. My phone was dead. My boyfriend called one of my roommates and told me what was going on. I rushed home to get them. On my home, I looked at my Ring camera on my roommate's phone, and they were sitting outside for an hour. Until midnight. They probably would have been sitting out there until 2 in the morning if my neighbor hadn't noticed them. When I got there, they were in tears saying that their daddy was mad at them because they didn't like Meg. My roommate and I comforted them and put them to sleep in my bed. I profusely thanked my neighbor and then decided to call their dad. I was livid. Tim didn't answer any of my calls or texts. The next morning, he responded and said he wanted to spend the night at Meg's, and the kids couldn't come. I guess her kids were at their dad's. I explained that he cannot just drop them with me at any time. I love them, but I am not their parent. Not to mention, that was completely unsafe. He apologized and came to get them, and we moved on. After this thing were fine for a while. I finally met Meg and her kids in October. Tim, Mary, James, Meg, and her kids came to a football game at my school. I quickly noticed there was tension between Meg and my niece and nephew. She barely acknowledged them and seemed annoyed when they talked to her. Her kids were fine though, well-behaved, and very sweet to James and Mary. But Meg was honestly a complete. She was not excited to meet me at all. She barely talked to me, my boyfriend, or our friends. She clung to my brother the entire time and gave me dirty looks every time I tried to talk to him. Everyone noticed this. I didn't care if she was rude to me, but I could tell it bothered James and Mary. The rest of the day was fine. They sat in their sections, and I went to the student section and didn't see them the rest of the night. This was the end of October, and there was about 3 weeks where I didn't see the kids after this. So, at this point, it's November. One night, Tim calls me with news. He has proposed to Meg, and they are moving in together. I was shocked. I didn't realize they were this serious, but okay. If he's happy, I'm happy for him. Things continue as normal until 2 nights ago, when Mary calls me crying. She tells me everything. Apparently, since the start of the relationship, Meg has made no effort to get to know Mary and James. She brings presents home for her kids, plays with them, brings her girls to get their nails done, does movie nights, etc. My brother has been included in these things, but Mary said James and her usually have to stay in their room during family time. Meg had moved into Tim's place. It's a huge house, 5 bedrooms. My brother and Meg also made James and Mary share a room, when they used to have their own, so Meg's girls could each have their own room. I was pissed to say the least. I got in my car with my boyfriend and drove over there. I didn't even knock, I walked right in. They were all in the kitchen, besides Mary and James. Tim was confused why I was there, But I wasted no time. I started asking where my niece and nephew were. Tim said they were in their room. I sort of blacked out what happened because I was so angry, but my boyfriend filled me in. This is probably where I'm the... Apparently, I was screaming at Tim, calling him a bad dad. I was just going off and Tim was silent. Until Meg spoke up. She actually said, "You can't really expect me to be a mother to these kids who aren't mine." I said, "That's exactly what I'm expecting." She then said, "It's not my fault their mother died. They still have their father and you." I looked at Tim, who looked equally shocked. Honestly, I couldn't contain myself. I launched at her and slapped her across the face as hard as I could. My boyfriend had to hold me back. James and Mary ran downstairs at this point. That's the only reason I stopped trying to beat up Meg. Meg was on the floor in tears. I took James and Mary's hands and left. This was yesterday night. Tim has been calling me telling me to bring his kids back, but I'm honestly considering bringing them home with me to my parents' house, their grandparents, for Christmas. My parents definitely don't know this is going on, otherwise they would have said something long ago. But now I don't know what to do. First of all, am I the asshole for showing up there? Second of all, should I tell my parents what has been going on? And third of all, should I take them with me for Christmas? My boyfriend and friends say I'm not the asshole, but I probably shouldn't have slapped her. And I probably shouldn't just take them with me without asking. Leaving James and Mary there with that woman is making me sick. So, Reddit, what do you think? Also, is Meg right for not wanting to step into a mother role for James and Mary? I'm missing some details, but this is most of the situation. Update. Thanks so much for all comments and advice over the past few hours. I want to start off by saying I love these kids more than anything. I would do anything for them. Unfortunately, I'm only 21, and I'm a server/bartender at a local restaurant. After rent and dues, I don't have enough money or time to be a proper parent to my niece and nephew, so I can't take them permanently. If I could, I would. But I'm not financially able to give them everything they need right now. But I loved their mom, and will do everything to make sure her kids always have someone in their corner. Something I forgot to mention in the original post. I hadn't been to my brother's house for a while. When I got there, it was completely redecorated. New furniture, decorations, even paint color. Fine, Meg moved in and wanted to redecorate. But almost all the photos of Janie were removed. There was still one or two of just Janie and the kids, but every family photo of my brother, Janie, and the kids was gone. There was a large family photo of them in the living room that was replaced by a photo of Meg and Tim. Neither of their kids were in the photo. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but it made me go from angry to absolutely livid. I'm not a violent person, but I was so overcome with emotion, and honestly, my heart was broken for my niece and nephew. I just couldn't control myself. For the time I've had Mary and James since the incident, Mary had been begging me to take them to Nana and Pop's, what they call my parents' house. I think James is a bit confused, but knows he wants to stay with Mary, and she has been adamant she doesn't want to see Meg or her dad, and wants to come with me to her grandparents. Okay, now for the update. I took a lot of y'all's advice and called my parents. They live in Florida, so unfortunately, they can't come with me to talk to Tim in person. I wish they could. Although my dad isn't Tim's bio dad, he really looks up to him and sees him as his father. My dad loves Tim like his son. I told them the entire story, including the slap and me taking the kids. My mom was in tears by the end, and my dad was pissed. They love their grandchildren. They knew Tim was getting married, but they haven't met Meg yet, and had no idea she was such a heartless comment. My mom's words, LOL. They called Tim and told him he either needs to go over to my house without Meg and have a calm conversation with me, or they are going to try and get custody of Mary of James. Or sue for custody. I don't know what they said. But Tim called me. He asked to come over and talk. My boyfriend and friends are taking the kids to ice cream and the movies, so they will be out of the house. Tim's coming over soon. Will update after we talk. Update. Hey Reddit! Wow, thanks for all the support, and different opinions on my situation. So, Tim and I talked. Long story short, I laid everything out. I explained why I took the kids, and how what him and Meg are doing is wrong. At first, he was defensive, but by the end he seemed more understanding. So, he agreed that I can take the kids to my parents' house for Christmas. I urged him to come with me, but he's going to stay with Meg and her kids. He then said he will fly down for New Year's without Meg. Meg said she will not be pressing charges if I apologize, so I called her and apologized. I really didn't want to, but had to. I'm still upset at my brother for deciding to spend Christmas with Meg and her kids instead of his own children, but I'll take what I can get. My brother gave me the Christmas presents he got for his kids. Sadly, not enough. He probably only spent around $150 USD total. I know that's a lot for some people, myself included, LOL, but my brother is loaded and should be getting his kids so much more for Christmas in my opinion. But whatever, I'm bringing them to my parents, so I'm happy. Luckily, my parents have a ton of presents and Christmas decorations already put up, and I'm going to get some stuff too, and try and make this the most magical Christmas for my niece and nephew. I don't know what is going to happen with Tim and Meg's relationship, but the kids are going to get to spend Christmas with people who love them. If anything else major happens over New Year's, maybe I'll make an update. Thanks, Reddit. OP is not the AH. Tim neglected his kids, and Meg was outright cruel. Slapping Meg was wrong, but OP acted out of love and protection. Taking the kids to their grandparents was the right move. Tim needs to step up as a father. Let's now jump on to the next story from Chance-Commercial-29 AITA for blocking an online friend after 5 years of friendship. I, 23F, met this online friend of mine. We'll call him Jerry, fake name, from my streaming platform just before COVID struck. I think he is a year older than me and lives in the same country as me. We used to play Minecraft together, with a whole group pretty much the whole time, and different games such as DBD, Apex, anything to pass the time. As we all know, that's what we gamers did during COVID. Well, I first started to notice the red flags with him. He would have friend groups IRL, and within a few weeks or months, he would say that they all turned out to be AHs, and he wanted nothing to do with them. Which is fine. Some people don't get on with others, and that is fine. The next red flag is, one day, maybe 3 months after we had met, we were talking how we met each other, and I was telling the group that me and Jerry had met through streaming. That is when Jerry said, no, we didn't meet through streaming, and I said, yes, of course we did, and that is when my phone started to ring. A call from the dating app Bumble was calling, and it was him. I never realized I had matched with him. We had only chatted for a little bit, and I mentioned in my profile that I was a streamer, and he asked for my streaming handle, and they were pretty much the end of the conversation. That creeped me out slightly, but I got over it because we were great friends by this stage. A few other fights and little things would break out in the group, the majority of it because of him. He would start to make me feel guilty if I decided to play a different game with a different friend or not go online that night. It kind of bothered me, but once we would start playing together, I would forget about what bothered me, and we would have a great time playing whatever together. We met up in 2021, where he came to my hometown. Of course, meeting a friend online, it is always awkward, but it was grand, and he went back to where he lives after a few hours. About a year after that, I got into a relationship, and this is the time where Jerry texted me saying he has something to say to me. He told me that he liked me and always wanted to see where it could go, but now that I am in a relationship, that he just wanted to get it out in the open. TBH, this really just weirded me out, and I didn't talk to him for a few days, but then after a while it all just went back to normal because he was part of the group I played with. Next Realms came to the Minecraft Bedrock Edition. We used to play on worlds that I would create, but my PS4 wouldn't be able to handle the world, and after a few months, the worlds would corrupt. We then decided to make a realm so that our group could always have a world we could play on together. This world is nearly 4 years in the making. It is a great world where we used to come on together and play and have fun and create whatever we wanted. Our group got smaller and smaller as people move on and do other things. So now it was just myself, Jerry, and the lad who owns the realm world. Obviously, COVID came to an end, and because I was just out of school, I decided to get a job and work. And in those few years, I have gotten a job I really liked, moved out of my parents' house, and also have a lovely BF who is letting me use his account to vent this out. I don't have the time like I used to have to play games. My work is very stressful some days, and after a day's work, I love coming home, having dinner, read a book, and then bed. I didn't talk to my group that much because I grew up, and just like a lot of you will understand, I just don't have time for video games. So last year, it was Jerry's birthday in September. He was constantly asking me to come down to where he was for a visit, and so I decided I would, but I wanted to bring my BF as I had never visited that place before, and because obviously, I didn't want to visit Jerry by myself, just in case. We got the bus down, and immediately when we arrived, it was weird. Jerry was just acting very strangely. He wasn't like the way he was when I first met up with him. We got into his car and went for a drive where he was showing us where he grew up. He drove so fast down back roads, I was honestly very scared. He has crashed 2 previous cars that he swears wasn't his fault. He constantly took sneaky photos of me also when he thought I wasn't looking. I got him a Dobby Lego set for his birthday, and he just immediately sat down and made it and didn't talk to us while doing it. He then turned on his PS5 to show my boyfriend our Minecraft world. Jerry is very proud of it and was constantly talking about different things about it, and it was just like, okay, we get it. Like, let's maybe do something else. BF did not like him after that trip. It also seemed that Jerry did not like my boyfriend and was very standoffish. Anyway, after that trip, the relationship between myself and Jerry was weird. He would try to call me all the time. All the time. He would give out and make me feel awful when we would lose our snap streak on Snapchat. It all just got too much for me. So about 6 months ago, I saw he had kicked me from our Discord group, and I said enough was enough. I blocked him on everything. Literally everywhere. I had never felt such a weight off my shoulders after that day. This is where I feel like an ah. Tonight, I decided I wanted to play Minecraft because I haven't in months, and I think there was a new update. Not sure. I asked the guy who owns the realm, could I still play on the realm, and he said no problem. The last thing I was doing on that world was building gates to a castle. So, I began working on it again, and it was just honestly so lovely to be back on the world after maybe a year of not playing on it. That is when Jerry joins and flew over and broke all of the gates I had, and they tried to kill me. PvP was off, thankfully. I left the world and rejoined after 10 minutes to get a sign where the gates of my castle used to stand that said, "Don't join again. Last warning." He then came back on, not even 2 minutes later, to try and kill me again. Did I take it too far to block him like I did? It just made me feel awful, and obviously has affected him so much he feels the needs to keep the world to himself and to make sure I stay out. I would appreciate anyone's advice. OP is not the AH. Jerry was possessive, manipulative, and displayed controlling behavior. Blocking him was necessary for OP's well-being. His reaction in Minecraft confirms he's immature and bitter. Let's now jump on to the next story from OP simply outgrew the friendship and set healthy boundaries. Opening _ Neat8128. I want to break it off with my boyfriend, but feel like I can't. We've been together for 3 years this past July. He's never laid a hand on me, or yelled at me, or made me feel bad for being my authentic self. As of late though, I don't feel the same spark that I once had with him. In the first year of our relationship, everything was great. I was with him a lot, and enjoyed being with him playing video games and hearing him talk about his passions. I don't know what single event made me rethink of our relationship, but it's been rocky for a while. He's a sweet, caring guy, and I truly do care about him. It's just that sometimes I feel like I'm trapped with him. What I mean by that is that he's a bit on the clingy side. I told him that I value my personal space, so that includes doing things with other people, such as bonding with my roommates, spending time with my family, going to work-related outings, etc. This meant a lot to me, especially during my college years, recently graduated. My major was chemical engineering, so I had quite a bit of projects, homework, and studying to do on the daily basis, along with working at the same time. It was a lot to juggle every week, but I let him know that I wasn't ignoring him or anything if I happened to not message him back instantly. If I did have time to myself, I just wanted to stay home and do my own thing. Whether that's sleeping, cleaning, playing a game for a couple of hours, that sort of thing. There would be times where he would want to hang out, but I had something happening in the following days, whether that would be an exam, a project that would account for 35% to 45% of my total grade, work, things like that. I had to tell him that when things like this happen, I can't really drop everything and go with him, especially if it's school-related. There were way too many times where I failed a class by a small margin, and I would be upset about it due to it pushing my graduation down a semester. I wanted to get the class right the first time, you know? I would talk to him about it, and he said he understands. The thing, though, is that I don't think he fully understood. What was probably the slow starting decline was when he started getting really pushy about us hanging out, especially at his place. He would say things such as, "You don't want to see me anymore," or "Just say you don't want to be here." When he would say these things, I felt guilty for saying no in the first place. It became where even if I had something important happening, I would go with him, just to make him happy. At some point, though, he then started pushing for me to stay the night at his apartment. I told him that I would love to, but the campus is 5 miles away from where he is versus half a mile where I live at. But if I did spend the night on a school night, he would have to drop me off on campus due to my scooter not having enough mileage to get there in one go. That would mean, though, us waking up an hour before he goes to work, which is 7 a.m., just to drop me off. Both of those reasons he didn't like one bit. What I'm trying to say is that I feel like he is too overly attached to me. He has a small group of friends that he occasionally hangs out with, but wants to be with me a majority of the time. I told him that if I'm not at school, I'm at work, and if I'm not at work, I'm in school. I had to tell him that our time together is going to get smaller when I get my big girl job, working 13-hour shifts and whatnot. I don't know if he took that well. But I feel this is something worth mentioning, but recently he stalked me at work when I said I was going to go to work early to eat. I was scared when I saw his car parked on the other side of my workplace, just to drive around the perimeter and leave. And he didn't tell me that he did that. He doesn't know that I know of the incident. What makes me feel conflicted with how I'm feeling is that there's things that have happened in my life that make me how I am now. Remember the personal space thing? I was in a home where I didn't have that, where my freedom was constantly at the hands of my parents and older siblings, even as a full-fledged adult. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere outside of work and college-related functions for years. When I had finally moved out of my parents' apartment, I wanted to experience the freedom that I finally had. AITA for feeling this way? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update. And after looking over people's comments, I'm going to talk to him about how I'm feeling tomorrow. It hurts to have to do this, but I at least owe him this conversation. I'm bringing a friend with me just as an extra safety precaution. Would have done it after work, but I feel that unloading something this serious at 1 a.m. in the morning wouldn't be the best move. Until then. OP is not the AH. She communicated boundaries, but her boyfriend repeatedly ignored them, guilt-tripped her, and even stalked her. Her need for space is valid, especially given her past. Breaking up is the right choice for her well-being. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye! See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries. Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from Silver Sky NN. AITA. If I cut off my father, if he stays with his girlfriend after she assaulted me. My father and I have always had a pretty good relationship, but TBH it has been strained since I had my first child about 9 months ago, as I've not felt he's been very kind or supportive towards me. My husband, Baby, and I went to visit him recently, He lives in a vacation spot, so we visit every winter. His girlfriend, who he's been with for a few years, moved in with him last year. His girlfriend and I have always gotten along, and I really loved her. I was prepared to allow my son to call her grandma even, and encouraged my dad to propose when he told me he was thinking about getting married to her. To my surprise, only 3 days into our visit, his girlfriend came home from work and lost it at me, and my dad witnessed the entire thing, screaming at me, accusing me of ridiculous things, saying horribly mean things to me. I have to spare you the details because otherwise the post will be so long. But essentially, she is an almost 60-year-old woman who was never married or had children, but always wanted to. And it seemed like she was angry that I have a child, and she never did, and was using me as a punching bag as a result. I felt like I was on the school playground and getting bullied by the mean girl. Eventually, she got so angry that she came an inch within my face, screaming insults at me, waving her long fingernails in my face. This is where my dad stepped in and had to literally grab her arms, hold her back to prevent her from attacking me. But she kept escaping him and going after me, screaming at me, chasing me around the apartment. At one point, she started aggressively running toward the room where my baby was sleeping, screaming her head off and tried to open the door to wake up my baby. My dad grabbed her at the last second and prevented her from doing this. But when she tried to go into my baby's room like that, I knew there was no coming back from this, and I would never be willing to be near her again. She also put her hands on me aggressively after I told her not to touch me. Throughout this whole altercation, I did not scream at her or touch her at all. I tried my best to calmly defend myself the entire time, and my dad, who witnessed it, agrees I handled the situation as well as anyone could have. My dad felt her behavior was completely out of line, mean, aggressive, and scary. Since the incident occurred, I have not seen her, and I made it clear to my dad, I will never go near this woman again, and cannot let her near my child again. When she was running towards his room, it was honestly one of the scariest moments of my life, because I really felt like she might try to hurt him. I even considered calling the police and filing assault charges against her, but decided not to, as I do not like dealing W police typically. The problem I am having with my father is that he has told me that he loves this woman and does not want to break up with her, even though he witnessed the entire event and agrees her behavior was unbelievably horrible, aggressive, and scary. As a mother myself, I cannot understand why he would want to stay with a person who assaulted his child. If someone did that to my son, I would leave them immediately and never see or speak to them again. I am so disappointed in my father that he would want to stay with this woman after this. The entire thing was traumatizing for me, and this happened several weeks ago, and I've barely recovered. I told my dad that if he stays with her, I will really have no choice but to stop having a relationship with him as well, and that also means he cannot have a relationship with my son, his only grandchild. He says it is unfair for me to make him choose between her and I, and to that I told him she is the one making him choose because she's the one who attacked me. So AITA, if I cut my dad off, if he stays with this woman? OP is not an AH for cutting off his father. OP's father's girlfriend physically assaulted her and tried to enter her baby's room aggressively. Her father witnessed everything, yet still chooses to stay with her. OP is right to cut him off to protect herself and her child. Not OP. OP's father and his girlfriend are AHs, and I would rate OP's father 3.5 and OP's father's GF 4 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump on to the next story from Berry Plus Cream. AITA for joking about celebrity crushes at a birthday party. I, 24F and pregnant, and my husband, 29M, went to a friend's birthday party, 28F, at a restaurant about a week ago. Birthday girl, BG I guess, invited a lot of our friends from church, who are all within the 20 to 30 age span as well. I sat right next to BG, at her request, and my husband sat at her other side. There were about 18 of us total. Some of us were drinking casually, but I wasn't, and neither was my husband, just to clarify. For background context, I'm autistic, and also cope with a lot of chronic pain that my pregnancy sometimes exacerbates, and this day happened to be a pretty painful and exhausting day, even before the party. I went just to support BG. I truly wanted her to be happy, but I was distracted by my own discomfort, and my verbal filter may have been fuzzy, which is why I'm trying so hard to figure this out. At some point, a birthday game started. Questions and multiple choice answers BG herself wrote. Things like favorite animal, best vacay spot, and notably, ranking a list of her celebrity crushes. I say this to stress. My following comments were not out of nowhere, but in direct response to this last question. I laughed when this was asked, and made a comment she herself has made, joked about, seemed completely fine with in private, that her celeb crushes change at a whim, except for Bruno Mars. It's always Bruno Mars at the top. She adores the man. Your celebrity crush changes every week, but Bruno Mars is always the one you melt over. This question is rigged, is the phrasing I remember using. I did also throw in that I felt betrayed she didn't include Shamar Moore, as I had just showed him to her that week, and I thought we bonded over examples of fine chocolate men together. Again, an inside joke. I did say the first bit loudly enough that everyone heard me, but the second comment was quieter and directly aimed at BG, to which she laughed and talked more about the birthday game to the table at large. I didn't notice anyone take it badly. People laughed. BG did too. I moved to curl up by my husband when I could, and I continued joking with everyone. I even discussed my own celebrity crushes with other ladies. I occasionally stepped aside to the bathroom to decompress and regulate my own pain, but came back quickly, and sure I was visibly cheerful, a total of maybe thrice. We left the party as it winded down. All seemed well. I've spent the week thinking everything was fine. No one has said anything to me about ill behavior or my jokes until last night. BG came over to mine specifically to hash out what turned out to be around 7 or 8 people approaching her at different times after the party, claiming to be shocked that I'd so openly imply she's a SLT and air out our relationship tensions in front of everyone at her birthday party. Yes, that exact phrasing was used, and I'm appalled. And no little bit hurt that people I've known for 2 years think that's what I meant. I'm also baffled at relationship tensions. I'll admit she and I are a little complicated at times, but I'm sure my demeanor didn't reflect that. And we've been fine recently, something BG confirmed. I'm also completely floored at the fact that someone overheard my Shamar Moore comment and had a problem with me commenting on us liking black guys. I don't even know what to do about that. According to BG, she defended me, to the point that herself and one of the girls has a small falling out about it all. I'm so upset it affected her this way, and additionally upset at BG admitting she became hurt and embarrassed after being approached repeatedly about it, and even said she doesn't know what our relationship is going to look like in the future. It's worth noting, BG went on to say that people had a lot of issues with different things I said in general at the party, but she hasn't shared with me what else I did wrong, and absolutely refuses to give further details. I can't imagine what else is going on, and asking my husband has left us both confused and exhausted from recounting the night repeatedly. My husband was present and sober for the whole party, witnessed this all, and very firmly doesn't think I did anything wrong. In fact, he is pissed I'm dealing with what he considers petty drama while 4 months pregnant and coping with pre-existing health issues. He's adamant that this isn't good for me, and is trying to get new connections started with other friend groups in church, so we can distance ourselves without risking me being isolated. Myself, I'm more than a little miffed that people that are apparently talking behind my back like this have had no problem cooing over my ultrasound pics just yesterday night. But at the same time, I have only heard from BG, and I'm loath to approach others about it and turn it into a whole he said, she said, messy gossip train. All in all, I'm devastated. Feel like I screwed up a friend's birthday, and am genuinely struggling with the idea that people I considered close friends are being overwhelmingly fake to my face. I don't know if this is the divide between autistic difficulties and neurological expectations. I don't know if I really messed up, or even fully how I messed up. I just hate how my brain works, my social skills, and my own personality at this point, and I want to just stay in bed and never talk to anybody ever again. AITA for how I conducted myself at the party? OP is not an AH for making lighthearted jokes based on BG's own comments, and GB even laughed on OP's jokes. The overreaction from others seems rooted in gossip and misinterpretation. BG refusing to clarify further suggests unnecessary drama. OP didn't intend harm and shouldn't blame herself. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from MJO87003. AITA for removing my friend, 20F, from my wedding. I am a 21F, and last month I married my wife, 22F. All in all, the wedding was lovely, and I couldn't be happier. But there was one friend that nearly ruined the whole ordeal. We'll call her B for the sake of the story. I've known B since elementary school, but we really only became friends in our 20s. B was, and still is to my knowledge, in an open relationship. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but B pretty much made it her whole personality. She's a very peace and love, hippy-dippy kind of girl. So, it's safe to say she often talked about positivity and her escapades often, despite me being engaged. She would often make passes at me, calling me beautiful, saying she would go for it if she could, and even kissing my cheek one time. Now, you have to understand, girl-on-girl flirting is so much harder to pick up on. For a while, I just thought this was friendly, though it was pretty much confirmed when B asked my fiancé at the time, and I for a threesome, despite her always being cold and distant to my soon-to-be wife. It bothered me quite a bit, and my wife even more so. We're monogamous, and felt it was odd she'd ask when she knew this. However, this was more just icing on the cake with B. So, as the wedding came closer, I'd picked my bridesmaids and maid of honor. My maid of honor was my close friend M, someone I felt was mature and caring enough to take on the role. B was a bridesmaid, and she'd never shown any protest to that. Not until I made a group chat with my wedding party. As soon as I sent the first message, I got a private message from B. I won't copy-paste it, but she basically said she wanted to arrive earlier than everyone else, talk over the wedding with me, and get ready with me privately. She said she could be the secret maid of honor, while M could hold the title officially. I thought this was super odd. Not only did I find it rude of her to undermine my MOA, but she wanted to be alone with me when the plan was for all of us to get ready together. I politely explained she was welcome to help out however she could, and she was allowed to get ready with me, but that we would not get a chance alone, and M would continue to be my MOA. Luckily, she seemed to accept this answer, though I felt odd keeping it to myself, so I decided to tell me about it privately. It was about her after all. When I told her, she got a strange look on her face and said she needed to tell me something. A week or so earlier, I threw my wife a bachelorette party. Myself, my bridal party, and a few other friends attended. My wife's bridal party was mostly family flying in week of, so they couldn't attend. Apparently during the party, B had pulled M and another bridesmaid aside, explaining that she was thinking about asking me to reconsider day of the wedding. I never really found out why she would do this, but both M and the bridesmaid strongly advised against it. M told me she didn't want to stress me out with this information, but with B saying she wanted to talk over the wedding alone, felt very sketchy with that added context. I was shocked, but I really tried to chalk it all up to the fact we'd been drinking that night. I thanked me for telling me, and life continued on normally. Then the day of the wedding came. We all met up at an Airbnb my wife's parents rented to get ready. My wife and I were going to do a first look and photos at a park, then drive to the venue for the ceremony. This is important later. I'd gotten a text from B earlier that day saying she was going to get ready on her own and just meet us for photos. So, after insisting she'd arrive early, she was now not even coming to get ready. Whatever, and got ready with my bridesmaids. It's important to note that B smokes weed. Like a lot. Though I'd asked her a while back if she could be sober on the wedding day, just until after the ceremony concluded. As we're getting ready, M shows me B's Snapchat story. In it, she has a new dab pen and is videoing herself hitting it, directly going against what I'd asked. I was distraught, but was again trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe one hit wouldn't kill her? We arrive at the park for photos, and B doesn't show up until we're getting called over by the photographer. Her dress is covered in makeup stains, and she is practically stumbling from how high she is. Even my parents could tell something was up. We do our first look, take photos, and my wife and I hop in the car to head to the venue. On the drive, I confide in her about everything going on with B, how I felt really disrespected and wasn't sure how to continue. My wife went on to tell me she was going to ask me to have B removed. She could tell B was high and saw her smoking during the photos. This made my wife really uncomfortable, and the secret maid of honor / bachelorette party were just fuel to the fire. With that added insight, I called M and my mom, telling them we no longer wanted B to attend. They both promised they'd handle it. We arrived and went upstairs to the bridal suite. My mom came up later and told me she'd escorted B out. I don't know exactly what my mom said, but it was something along the lines of, "You must have lost your damn mind." Not exactly friendly, but clear on the message that she wasn't welcome anymore. So, imagine my surprise when I look out a window into the ceremony hall and see B storming up the stairs. My family sees my face go pale and puts two and two together. Everyone goes to block the door, completely forgetting about the second entrance. B takes the opportunity and comes right up to me asking, "So what? You want me to leave?" I'm in pure shock. I'm literally minutes from walking down the aisle, bouquet in hand, and I'm being confronted by someone I'd asked to be removed. Before I can even stammer out a word, my wife steps between us and tells B to get out. B retaliates. "What? She can't speak for herself? Are you going to control her forever?" When B continues to refuse, more family steps in, demanding she leave. Finally, my mother-in-law approaches, placing a hand on B's arm and guiding her to the door. B starts yelling, "Don't touch me! You're assaulting me!" Once they're out of the room, B slaps my mother-in-law. My brother literally held my wife back as a venue employee quickly came and made B leave. My mother-in-law was not hurt, as it was very minor. Not even 5 minutes later, I walked down the aisle. It was a beautiful ceremony that quickly made me forget about all the drama that had ensued, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have to wipe tears before making my entrance. After the wedding, we found out B had been making posts about my wife and I. A friend showed us the screenshot because obviously we'd both been blocked. She said we'd kicked her out because we thought her dress was slutty, and we were racist. She's Pakistani and we're white. She also said in these posts that I was a victim to conservatism, basically implying I had no say in her removal. Since she'd blocked me, I made a post telling the whole story and addressing her crazy accusations. So far, everyone's been on my side. Even B's sister and roommate have gone low to no contact with her over this. I keep reminding myself that I didn't do this. These are just the consequences of her own actions. But at the same time, I feel if I'd communicated more sturdy boundaries with B, none of this would have happened. OP is not an AH for removing B from her wedding. B repeatedly disrespected boundaries, made inappropriate advances, ignored OP's requests, got high at the wedding, and caused a scene. Given her behavior, OP is 100% justified in removing her from her wedding. She is an AH, and I would rate OP's friend 3 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump onto the next story from your petty potato. AITA for trying to sort things out after a fight with my mom. I, 15F, had a fight with my mother over my grades in my exams. I didn't fare so well in them, and I was really disappointed. I listened to Mama's explanation in the afternoon about what I should do to improve my grades, and Mama was very supportive by not shouting. I could tell she was disappointed in me, and I was feeling bad, so I was crying. Mama couldn't understand why. She kept telling me to move on and stop moping. I tried, but I was feeling really bad. Well, in the evening, I started crying again after coming back from class, and Mama hugged me, which made me so happy because Mama usually doesn't comfort me. And then I had to go to blow my nose because it was leaking very badly. When I came back, Mama told me to sit down, and I did. And I just wanted to cry to get it all out. But Mama was just explaining the same thing she'd explained in the afternoon, and I told her, "Can you please for 5 minutes not explain, and just hug me and let me rant?" She said I'm a pessimist and I'm weak-minded because I constantly want to feel bad for myself. Then she continued explaining, and I nodded along, but in a patronizing way, because I just wanted her to cajole me, and Mama got mad. She told me I was disrespectful and rude, and told me to starve. She hadn't made food yet because she needed to order the groceries, and that if I wanted to, I could go find a new mother, and she'd take care of the boys, my cousins, who lost their mother a year ago. Those two things, I feel, were just a little harsh. In the case of the boys, it's been a bone of contention between us, because whenever I try and tell her, "Please don't be the boys' mama, you're my mama," she gets mad and says I'm being controlling. But I've tried to tell her it's because I'm insecure about that, because Mama's always said she wanted a boy, because they're less fussy. I gave Mama about half an hour to cool off, and then I came to apologize, And Mama said I constantly play the victim card, and that I hold this sense of thinking I'm being treated horribly by my parents, and that I think that she's supposed to be fine with everything I do. Then the fight escalated, and she said that even if I apologized, it didn't mean anything, and she didn't have a switch she could just turn off and not be made anymore. She said, "You can hold a grudge for so long, but I can't do that. I'm supposed to be happy with just one sorry and done. I shouldn't be mad." Then I said that she'd never really apologized. She asked me what she had to apologize for. I asked her if I could tell her. She said yes. I told her that one time while taking up my French work, we had a fight, and she said she didn't love me. And it might not seem like a lot, but that hit me very hard. When I told her, she said I was digging out skeletons, and she didn't have to apologize for anything. She said I was an ungrateful wretch, and that she couldn't give me the kind of love I want because I was expecting too much out of her. She said I was a typical girl, wanting to be comforted and fawned on when I feel sad. I asked her if she loved me, because during fights I get extremely insecure and nervous that in that moment my mama hates me. She said she wasn't going to stroke my ego by telling me, and that I should know if she loves me or not. I told her I know she loves me in the bigger picture, and that I just wanted reassurance that in this moment she still did. She said she owed me nothing and wasn't going to tell me. She also brought up my cat, who passed away years ago. She said I didn't appreciate him while he was alive. She said while cleaning his litter tray, I used to hold my breath and act so disgusted, but now I'd be willing to do that to get a new pet. I was 10 when my cat passed away. Mama had always cleaned his litter tray, and I really, really miss him. So much that when he passed on, I went into depression, which my mother refuses to believe I ever had, or that I still have. I had a glass of milk that night and went to bed. She asked me if I wanted anything, but I said no, because after fights if I eat, I always end up throwing up. I know Mama was extremely caring, with not yelling at me at all throughout the day, even though my grades were horrible. But this has been a recurring issue, where my mother doesn't care about emotions. If anything, sad happens, she expects me to just move on with life, but then if I move on without emotion, she says I have a black heart. But if I do cry and show emotion, I can't do it for more than 5 minutes, because then it's crocodile tears, and I'm being too sensitive. I told her once that her hitting me when she's mad at me is really harsh, and that it scares me. And now, whenever there are cases of any child abuse on the news, she'll come and show it to me and say, "See, you're not going through anything." She constantly tells me how badly her parents treated her, and I know she's a better parent than them. I just feel like Mama says some really hurtful things, which she doesn't even think are hurtful. Mama doesn't know how to comfort someone for longer than a few minutes. So now, when I'm feeling sad, I've started just telling her, "Mama, for 10 minutes, please just hug me and tell me everything will be all right." But then she laughs and tells me to toughen up. Do I have unrealistic expectations? AITA. OP is not an AH for wanting comfort, and it is not weakness. She is seeking emotional support, but her mother dismisses her feelings, invalidates her pain, and makes hurtful remarks, which is unfortunate. OP's expectations are not unrealistic. Rather, her mom lacks empathy, so she is an AH, and I would rate OP's mom 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump onto the next story from similar_self8507. AITA for ruining my ex-best friend's life, for giving me severe depression, and dating a 13-year-old at 16. For context, we met around 3 years ago when I was in 7th grade and she was in 8th. We're going to call her Emily. Didn't have any friends because of her social anxiety, and she was bullied because of a really bad speech impediment she had. So when she wrote a note to me asking to be my friend, I happily agreed. I was so happy that someone who was extremely shy came out of her shell enough to try and talk to someone. We were friends all the way throughout middle school and into high school, and everything was normal. This is important for later, but she got a crush on a boy who we're going to call Greg, and her mom was very mentally unstable and would always be monitoring her phone and ground her often for really no reason. She rarely got physical, but once or twice she'd come to school with bruises. I did all I could at the time to help, like reporting it to the school, etc. The summer going into ninth grade for me was when she started to get strange. She started frequenting a website called Quotev, where she made a lot of online friends. She became addicted to the website Quotev, spending the whole school day just making feed posts on Quotev. She made a bunch of online friends and wasn't really talking to me anymore. Whenever she did, though, would always snap and yell at me whenever I tried reaching out and asking how she was doing. One day, she went up to me and told me that she was dating someone online. At the time, she was 15 and he was 12. Of course, I was very uncomfortable, so I expressed that. When she told me, I replied with, "You," and the next thing I know, I was blocked by her. I told it very harshly. I messaged her boyfriend and told her to talk to him and told him to apologize to her for me and that I was very sorry, but whatever I did, but she never unblocked me. And on Emily's profile, she would make posts making fun of me and my attempts to reach out again. Finally, after days of me making posts about me apologizing, hoping she'd see them, she unblocked me and messaged me acting like everything is normal. And under all my posts, I made apologizing and crying over my best friend. She replied with "oopies" or "sowie." And when I didn't reply, because who says that she was complaining on her feed about how much of an awful person I was because she went out of her way to forgive me and unblock me, and I'm being a brat and not replying. After some debating, I chose to send her a long message about my problems, about how she's been treating me, etc. And all she replied with was basically telling us to start over, not apologizing for her actions. And we did. I apologized, and she didn't, and our friendship continued. The school year started, and I started ninth grade, and she started 10th, and we were in the same school. But the same things kept happening. Her making fun of me, yelling at me, and being rude to me for reaching out. At the same time, I started talking to her crush, Greg. Greg and me became very close, and around the same time, Emily, who was still dating her boyfriend, who is now 13 and her being 16, asked out her crush Greg. She was polyamorous, I think. He wasn't interested, but didn't know how to say it, so he just pretended that it never happened. Emily, though, instead of asking, just cut him off. She stopped talking to him, but I kept our relationship. We became really good friends, despite Emily not talking to him anymore. She started making posts on her feed about how jealous she was of someone. I just didn't question it, though. After a little while of her continuously treating me bad, and my mental health took a drop. She blew up on me one day about how she was super jealous of me for having a mom that cared about me, and how I was talking to Greg, her crush, and about how I took him from her, even though they weren't dating and hadn't talked in months. After that, I told Quotev that I was taking a break from it for my mental health in a post on my feed, and Emily had turned it into a copy pasta, adding emojis and making fun of it. That was the last straw. I blocked her one night and shut off my phone so I didn't get any messages. I came back at the end of the day to a flurry of notifications and messages from her from an account that she had made specifically to message me on, asking what she did wrong. I blocked that and continued to ignore her. Well, the whole time she was making posts about how she did nothing wrong, and all she did was vented about her abusive mother, and about how she should just keep her feelings inside, and about how much she missed me. I wasn't giving in again, though. All of her friends were convinced that I was in the wrong and that I was a terrible person, so I blocked all of them too. Life continued as normal. Now me 14F and her 16F at the time. Until I heard that she was talking about me on her story and making fun of me, mentioning how awful I was. I decided that enough was enough, and to finally tell everyone the truth of what happened and about her relationship with her boyfriend. I told everyone that she was dating a 13-year-old at 16, and about how she would make comments about how she wanted him to shove her against the wall and make out with her, or about how hot he was for just a few. And it turned into a show. All of her friends turning on her, and her getting mass reported till she deleted all of her accounts but one, until she eventually got banned off of the platform, all together, all in a matter of hours. All of her friends were on my side and turned on her, and she got banned off the website completely. I know that what she did was terrible, but sometimes I still feel bad for what I did, and that she didn't deserve to lose basically all her friends, even if they were online and were unaware of her horrible actions. Shortened version. My ex-friend was dating a 13-year-old at 16 and would post content about them on her feed and gaslight me into thinking I was a terrible person, even though I did nothing to her that deserved that reaction. I blocked her, and everything was normal until she brought me up again on her story, and I told all her friends about her relationship, and she got banned off of this website that had all her friends on it, objectively losing all her friends. Edit. I'm sorry if this is disorganized or is confusing at parts. There's so much to this story, and I could be missing some important information, if I am please saying in the comments, and I will clarify. OP is not the AH for what she did. Emily manipulated and bullied OP while engaging in an inappropriate relationship. OP's exposing Emily's actions was justified, and OP did nothing wrong in it. While OP feels guilty, Emily got what she deserved, and she is an AH for her behavior. As for scores, I would rate Emily 4 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye! See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.